Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel once again. I'm Robert Storms. As always, if you guys find me for the very first time, please do me a favor, smash that like and subscribe button. That way you guys can stay up to date on all future content here on the channel. Before we get to the main topic, because it's a big topic, I just want to take this time to do a selfish plug, guys. You guys can jump over to my Robert Storms gaming channel. We're trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible. I do all kinds of content over there on the channel, and if you guys can go over there and support, I would really appreciate it. We got all kinds of stuff, live streams, reviews, breakdowns, news, Halo series reviews, everything over there. If you guys can please just show your support, go over there, subscribe. I will leave a link in the pinned comment below in the comment section, as well as the description box below, so if you guys can just go click on that, I would appreciate it. So let's talk about this big news coming out over at Warner Brothers. If you guys don't know what's going on, Warner Brothers and Discovery are merging together. Discovery went in, bought into Warner Brothers, and they're actually merging. And what's going on now is Discovery is wanting to give DC an overhaul and actually have DC be its own studio. And this is why this is important, because what was one of the biggest things that I've said that needed to be done with the DCEU, that there is no leadership. Everybody just kind of scattershot doing their own thing. There isn't one vision being seen over there at DCEU. And that's something that Marvel has. What people don't understand is, yes, Disney owns Marvel, but Marvel is its own studio, right? Like, same thing with Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm, that does Star Wars, is its own studio. They have their own studio where they go and they do their thing and they report back to Disney, but they're their own filming studio. Marvel, the MCU, is its own studio. Kevin Feige is in charge of that studio. DC doesn't have that. It's Warner Brothers, and they oversee everything. Warner Brothers is the studio, and DC is in there. DC doesn't have its own studio. So when you look at something like Marvel, or let's just put Disney for an example, the reason why Disney is so successful is that you have your top person, who used to be Bob Iger, now it's Chapek, but then you have all the different studios underneath it, whether it be Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, now 20th Century Fox. These are all its own studios. And they report back to the board, of course, but they have their own location where they go and they come up with their own ideas. For better, for worse, you can argue that, you know, Kathleen Kennedy just doesn't know what she's doing, but Kevin Feige very much knows what he's doing. He runs his own studio. They're their own filming studio. They're just under the parent company of Disney. And that's something I said that DC needed for the longest time. Warner Brothers needs to say, here's your own studio, go do your own stuff, because you can see that there's no leadership, right? We had Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and then they quickly got Snyder off because of bad critics reviews, and they wouldn't let him, you know, kind of move on forward with his vision. And then we got the mess that was Justice League. Then we got Suicide Squad, which was a mess, what they did with David Ayer. They did the Joker standalone movie, which is not part of the DCEU. They did the new Batman movie, which is right here with Robert Pattinson and Jeffrey Wright, which has nothing to do with the DCEU. And they're just scattershot all over the place. There's no direct vision. Everybody comes in, like J.J. Abrams comes in, and they pitch ideas, and they're like, well, I want to do a Black Superman movie. Okay, it sounds great, J.J. Abrams, do what you want. Well, now it looks like Discovery is kind of finally understanding that, you know what, you guys don't know what the fuck you guys are doing over there. Everything's a mess. You have your star for the Flash going around threatening to kill people and getting arrested. So let's go do something else. And according to this article, what they want to do is finally give DC and the DC film projects their own studio to go do their own thing with their own person ahead of all of that. And I think that's about time. That's what I've been preaching for years. If you guys remember my Black Panther Kills the DCEU video, which blew up on the channel, I said there is no vision. They have no leadership, right? You look at sports teams, right? What are some of the best sports teams have, right? Good leadership. What do the worst sports teams have? Teams like the Cleveland Browns or the Detroit Lions, right? They have no leadership. The front office is always rotating. There's no leadership over there, and it's a mess. Same thing works in the film industry. If no matter what industry you're in, if you have no leadership, then your company or your studio or whatever your industry is not going to survive, right? So for Discovery to come in and be like, look, we're going to make its own studio. We're going to put someone in charge, and they're going to oversee everything like Kevin Feige oversees the MCU. For better or for worse, there's going to be one singular vision, and that is something that's been desperately needed. I get branded a DC hater a lot on here because I am very critical with some of the ideas and some of the things that they do. It's not because I'm a DC hater, it's because I'm a DC lover. I love the DC properties. I love DC characters and DC comics more than I love Marvel characters and Marvel comics. But I praise Marvel more because Marvel seems to get it right more, because they have one vision and they have, you know, they have a game plan and a roadmap, right? I would love to see some of the best comic book characters ever made, like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern. You know, I want to see them done justice. But when you don't have a singular vision, then you have people like Henry Cavill who wants to come back, but they won't let him come back. Ben Affleck quitting, and just the DC just in a disarray. So I think this is a fantastic idea. I think Discovery's coming in. They know that they have a $1 billion franchise within the DCEU, billions of dollars franchise in the DCEU. They just need leadership. And the question is going to be, who is the one to lead them? Now, if you want to get fanfare right away, you say Zack Snyder. But let's be honest, guys. As much as you guys like Zack Snyder and how much I actually really like Zack Snyder's vision, I don't think he's the right person for the job. I really don't. I really liked his trilogy. His trilogy was fantastic. I think he gave us a good base to build on. But I think someone like James Gunn is the right person to lead the DCEU into the future. And by the reason why I feel that way is because even when Zack Snyder did Man of Steel and BVS, he got a lot of backlash from not just critics. Everybody wants to say it's just the critics, but it wasn't just critics. It was fans. Like, people like me were like, this doesn't really feel like Superman. This is much more darker. Like, it doesn't feel fun. There's a lot of problems with these overall movies. I ended up growing to really like the films, and I think his version of Justice League is fantastic. But I don't think Zack Snyder is the right person to lead a franchise. I think James Gunn is the perfect candidate. And the reason why I say that is he worked in the MCU, he worked in the MCU circle for so long. He knows how Kevin Feige works. He knows how Kevin Feige thinks, right? So he knows how Kevin Feige runs the MCU. Not saying that James Gunn should run it like the MCU, but he has an idea of how it's run. He has an idea of how to start laying the foundation. How many of you guys had a job and you worked that job for years and years and years, right? And then you go off and do another job that's very similar, right? You have so much experience that you incorporate your experience into your newer job, and you're able to flow and change things and do things the way you think it should be done, but you never forget the lessons that you learned from your previous boss, your previous job, your previous trainer, right? A lot of people do that. That's a natural thing. I think James Gunn is the perfect candidate for that. He sees how the MCU runs. He sees what works, what doesn't work, and I think he's the perfect person to steer the ship in the right direction. He knows comic book properties more than Zack Snyder knows comic book properties. You can debate that whether you want or not. The fact is, James Gunn does know more about comic book properties than Zack Snyder does. I think you look at what he did with Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. This is the guy that obviously knows the material and is able to see what fans want. Look what he did with the MCU, right? He made the MCU galactic. We would not have the galactic cinematic universe in the MCU, the cosmic verse of the MCU, if it wasn't for James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy. Until then, everything was grounded. It wasn't until Guardians of the Galaxy where they really started experimenting with the cosmic universe, right? And I think James Gunn can really do that for the DCEU, right? You cannot say MCU without saying James Gunn right next to Kevin Feige. There's three people that you have to thank for the MCU: Jon Favreau, Kevin Feige, and James Gunn. They're the ones that established that franchise and the way it is today. And then we get more people like Ryan Coogler and so on later on. But those three are the head of the MCU. They are the ones that established what we think the MCU is today, right? You go to the DC, Zack Snyder did a great job, foundation, casting, and all that stuff. Get someone like James Gunn, who knows the franchise who knows the material and knows how to run a cinematic universe, and let him run that ship. That's my personal opinion on it, but this is big news, guys, and I'm really curious to see what's going to happen moving forward. So that's really all I have. I know that's kind of a lot to talk about, but it's really big news. Once again, guys, I want to throw a shout out to my gaming channel. If you guys can go over there and subscribe, I would appreciate it. I will have the link in the description box below, as well as a pinned comment. So guys, tell me what you guys think. Who do you think should run the DCEU? Leave those comments in the comment box below. Do you like the idea of them being their own studio? Let me know below. Until next time, as always, I'm Robert Storms, and that's my opinion.